Rush hour at Megamart Supermarket always felt like controlled chaos. Bright fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in that particular artificial glow that made fresh produce look simultaneously appetizing and plastic. The aisles stretched in neat geometric rows, packed with shoppers pushing carts, checking phones, herding children, all moving through the carefully orchestrated dance of American consumer life. Noah Cole stood in the breakfast cereal aisle, his daughter's small hand tucked firmly in his. Lily, 8 years old with her mother's blue eyes and his stubborn chin, clutched a piece of paper covered in crooked handwriting. Her shopping list. 3 items written in careful blue crayon. Milk bread small bear. The bear was underlined 3 times, each line progressively thicker, as if the extra emphasis might somehow guarantee its acquisition. The red cord bracelet circled Noah's left wrist. Lily had made it 2 years ago during one of his panic attacks braiding yarn, with the fierce concentration only children possess when they believe they're solving adult problems. She'd presented it to him with solemn ceremony, explaining that red meant courage and love, and whenever he felt scared, he should touch it and remember to breathe. He touched it now, a habit so ingrained he barely registered the movement. At 35, Noah had become adept at occupying the spaces between other people's notice. Not invisible exactly, but unremarkable enough that eyes slid past him without catching. Medium-height brown hair, kept short for convenience rather than style clothes from discount retailers chosen for durability over fashion. The kind of man who could stand in a room for an hour and leave no impression on anyone present. This invisibility was partly circumstantial, partly cultivated. His day job troubleshooting network issues for small businesses required a certain professional blandness. His night work 3 evenings a week as security guard for a business park across town demanded watchful silence. Between these two identities, Noah had carved out a life that functioned, if not thrived. Every dollar counted. Every shift mattered. Every moment with Lily was precious, hoarded against the inexorable passage of time and the knowledge that childhood was brief. Tonight's Megamart trip represented careful calculation. $47 in his checking account until Friday's deposit. Milk was $3.50, bread $2.79. The small bear prominently displayed at the end of the toy aisle cost $12.99. Lily's reward for her report card, all A's and 1 B+ in mathematics. They discussed the budget together that morning, Lily nodding seriously as Noah explained they needed to be careful with money this week. She'd accepted this without complaint, the way she accepted most things. At 8, she possessed an unsettling awareness of their financial constraints, a premature understanding of trade-offs and priorities that Noah both appreciated and mourned. Children should believe in abundance, should trust that desires would manifest through some magical adult alchemy. Instead, Lily knew the exact price of milk, understood why they bought store brand instead of name brand, could calculate whether they had enough money for ice cream based on what else filled their cart. The cereal aisle led to dairy. Noah grabbed the gallon of 2% milk, checking the expiration date automatically. 3 days longer than the competing brand, worth the extra walk to the back cooler. Lily swung their cart's front end toward bread, navigating with surprising skill for someone whose head barely cleared the handle. That's when Noah first noticed them. 2 men mid-30s moving through the store with purpose. They weren't shopping. Their eyes tracked something specific, someone specific with the focused intensity of predators who'd identified prey. One was tall, maybe 6'2", with the kind of lean build that suggested either athletics or manual labor. The other was shorter, stockier, with a military-style haircut and the controlled movements of someone trained in physical confrontation. Noah's training kicked in before his conscious mind registered the threat. 12 years working security for Port Authority before Sarah's death, teaching conflict resolution and crisis management to officers and corporate clients. He'd learned to read body language, to recognize coordination between individuals, to spot the subtle tells that separated ordinary shoppers from people with malicious intent. These two were coordinating, head nods so slight they'd be invisible to untrained observers, hand signals disguised as scratching an ear or adjusting a jacket. They were working together and they had a target. Noah maneuvered his cart closer to the action, keeping Lily occupied with her shopping list. She was studying it intently, mouthing the words to herself, her crayon having smudged slightly where her small fingers gripped the paper. The wine section stretched along the store's eastern wall, bottles arranged by region and price point. That's where Noah saw her. Vivian Cross. Even in a supermarket at 7:30 on a Tuesday evening, she looked like she belonged in a boardroom. Red business dress designer heels that probably cost more than Noah's monthly rent, hairstyled in that effortlessly perfect way that actually required considerable effort and expense. She examined wine labels with the same critical assessment she probably applied to quarterly earnings reports. Noah's chest tightened. 6 months since he'd last seen her, 6 months since the humiliation at Cross Technologies. The memory surfaced unbidden, sharp-edged, and bitter. He'd been doing contract IT work, a 2-week job installing new security systems and upgrading their server infrastructure. The pay was decent, the work straightforward. Noah had approached it with his usual professional competence, arriving early, staying late, ensuring every cable was properly secured and every protocol properly configured. Vivian Cross had treated him like furniture. Not actively cruel, just profoundly indifferent. She'd walked past him dozens of times without acknowledgement, held conversations with her executive team as if Noah wasn't crouched 3 feet away, running cable under her desk, complained loudly to her assistant about the slow internet guy within his earshot. When his equipment cart had accidentally brushed her desk, she'd snapped at him without looking up from her phone. Be careful. You damage something expensive, you'll be paying it off forever. The contempt in her voice had been casual, reflexive. Noah represented nothing to her, just another interchangeable service provider whose name she'd never learn and whose existence she'd forget the moment he finished his work. The security assessment had been his own initiative. Noah had noticed problems throughout the building, vulnerabilities that kept him awake at night with professional anxiety. Doors that stayed propped open despite being part of the access control system. Executive assistants wearing identification badges on public transit, making them easy targets for social engineering. Blind spots in camera coverage. Inadequate protocols for verifying visitor identities. He'd spent unpaid hours compiling a comprehensive report documenting each vulnerability with photographs and recommendations. He delivered it to Vivian's assistant with a cover letter explaining his background in security training, his expertise in threat assessment, his genuine concern for the safety of Cross Technologies personnel. Vivian had rejected it without reading past the first page. Her assistant had called him 3 days later, voice apologetic but firm. Ms. Cross appreciates your initiative, but Cross Technologies has adequate security measures in place. Your recommendations are considered unnecessarily expensive and frankly paranoid. Your contract work is complete. Please submit your final invoice. Noah had submitted his invoice. Cross Technologies had paid it, and Noah had added another layer to his carefully constructed invisibility, another confirmation that people like Vivian Cross would never see people like him as anything more than temporary help. Now here she was selecting wine that probably cost more than Noah's weekly grocery budget, completely oblivious to the 2 men closing in on her position. "Daddy, why are those men watching?" The pretty Lady Lily's whispered question cut through Noah's bitter memories. His blood chilled. If his 8-year-old daughter could see the threat, it was already too late for subtlety. The men were closing in. The taller one positioned himself at the wine aisle's end, casually examining a bottle while maintaining clear sight lines to his partner. The shorter man approached from the opposite direction, timing his steps to intercept Vivian as she reached for an expensive champagne bottle. Noah squeezed the red cord bracelet, feeling its rough texture against his skin. Lily had made it so he'd stay calm, so he'd remember to breathe during the panic attacks that had started a month after Sarah's funeral. His wife had died 2 years ago. Car accident on the interstate, drunk driver crossing lanes at midnight. She'd been returning from a late shift at the hospital, exhausted from 12 hours treating patients in the emergency room. The drunk driver had walked away with minor injuries. Sarah had died before the ambulance arrived. Noah had spent the first month after her death in a fog of grief so dense he could barely function. His in-laws had moved in temporarily, taking care of Lily, while Noah tried to remember how to breathe, how to eat, how to exist in a world where Sarah's laugh would never echo through their home again. The panic attacks had started slowly. First a tightness in his chest during a parent-teacher conference, then a full-blown attack in the grocery store, ironically enough gasping for air between the canned goods and pasta. Lily had found him hunched over, hand pressed against his chest, convinced he was having a heart attack. Instead of crying or screaming, his daughter had simply taken his hand and placed it over her heart. Feel my breathing, Daddy. Slow like mine. She'd been 6 years old. The next day, she'd presented him with the bracelet explaining her color choice and usage instructions with the absolute certainty of childhood wisdom. Noah had worn it every day since a talisman against his own broken neurochemistry. Now he touched it and forced himself to think tactically rather than emotionally. The shorter attacker adjusted his jacket as he moved, and Noah glimpsed what he was carrying. A utility knife's small retractable blade meant to intimidate rather than kill. Dangerous enough to control someone too small to attract attention in the brief moment before deployment. Noah recognized the taller man's movements first. Something familiar in the way he scanned the environment, the economical precision of his positioning. Then it clicked. Jason Mercer. Noah had trained him 3 years ago at Port Authority. Mercer had attended his conflict management course, asking intelligent questions about threat assessment and de-escalation techniques. He'd been promising attentive, clearly invested in developing his professional skills. During a lunch break, Mercer had shown Noah photos of his wife and young son, describing with obvious pride his boy's Little League achievements. What had happened to bring him here coordinating a kidnapping in a supermarket? The recognition complicated everything. Noah now understood exactly what one of the attackers was capable of. Mercer had been skilled at physical intervention techniques, but his real strength had been in situation control and crowd psychology. He knew how to read environments, manipulate civilian responses, create confusion that would mask his escape. Lily, sweetheart, I need you to do something very important. Noah's voice stayed calm, steady. Years of training had taught him to control his tone even when adrenaline flooded his system. Lily looked up from her shopping list, blue eyes serious behind the blonde hair that kept falling across her forehead. I need you to stay right here with the cart and count all the red things you can see around you. Don't move until I come back. But what about our groceries? This is more important than groceries right now. Can you be my brave girl? Lily nodded solemnly. I can count really high. I know you can, sweetheart. Noah positioned the cart near a display of paper products partially shielded from direct view of the wine aisle. He knelt briefly, bringing himself to eye level with his daughter. Remember our rule about strangers. Don't talk to them. And if anyone tries to make me go somewhere, scream really loud. That's my smart girl. He straightened every muscle coiling with anticipation. 12 years since he'd actively intervened in a security situation. 2 years since Sarah's death had forced him to trade his prestigious security training position for predictable IT work and night shifts. 2 years of focusing solely on providing stability for Lily, of retreating from confrontation and risk and the unpredictability that had once defined his professional life. But some skills didn't disappear. Some instincts couldn't be suppressed, especially when innocent people were in danger. The supermarket offered both resources and obstacles. Glass bottles that could shatter into weapons or hazards. Slick floors that could cause falls. Narrow aisles that limited movement but also created choke points. Civilian bystanders who could become collateral damage or potentially assets if they possessed useful skills. Noah approached from an angle that maintained visual contact with both Lily and the developing situation. His mind calculated distances, angles, potential reactions. What was Mercer's objective? Simple robbery seemed unlikely given the coordination and target selection. Kidnapping was possible, especially given Vivian's prominence. Corporate espionage seemed most probable. The attack came with practiced precision. Vivian had just selected an expensive bottle of champagne when the two men closed in from opposite ends of the wine aisle. The taller one moved first, pressing against her left side while Mercer blocked her escape route. Don't make a sound, the tall man's whisper carried menace. Something sharp pressed against Vivian's ribs through the red fabric of her dress. Walk with us toward the back exit, nice and quiet. The champagne bottle slipped from Vivian's fingers. The sound of shattering glass cut through the ambient supermarket noise like a gunshot. Crystal fragments scattered across tile champagne foaming against the floor. Customers nearby turned to look. They saw the broken glass, saw the knife now visible against Vivian's dress, and began to scatter. Not to help, but to avoid getting involved. The bystander effect in action. Everyone assuming someone else would call for help, everyone prioritizing their own safety over intervention. Please. Vivian's voice cracked with panic as she scanned the faces around her. Someone help me. The response was immediate and heartbreaking. People looked away, grabbed their children closer, pretended they hadn't seen anything. A woman with a full cart actually laughed a bitter sound that carried across the aisle. Looks like the rich lady's having problems. Maybe if she wasn't so high and mighty all the time, someone might actually care. Another customer nodded. I recognize her from the news. Cross Technology's CEO. Always talking about cutting costs and laying people off. The humiliation must have stung almost as much as the fear. Noah watches Vivian's face cycle through emotions, shock giving way to desperate calculation. She'd spent years cultivating an image of power and control, surrounding herself with security and deference. Now she was reduced to begging strangers for help while they debated whether she deserved it. The attackers were moving her toward the service corridor that led to the loading docks. Perfect for extraction, minimal witnesses, blind spots, and camera coverage. They'd planned this carefully, but they'd made tactical errors too. Their utility knives were intimidation tools. The retractable blades would fold under pressure in a real struggle. They were focused entirely on controlling Vivian with no awareness of their surroundings or potential threats. Most critically, they were operating during peak family shopping hours with children everywhere. Professional criminals should have avoided these collateral complications. Can we get my bear now, Daddy? Lily's voice carried clearly across the space. She was still clutching her shopping list, diligently counting red objects as instructed, but her focus was drifting toward the toy aisle. In just a minute, sweetheart. Keep counting for me. The attackers were moving Vivian toward the service corridor. Store security remained invisible, probably dealing with some minor crisis elsewhere, leaving this section unmonitored. That's when disaster struck in the most innocent way possible. Lily's small brown teddy bear, the bear from her shopping list that she'd been clutching, tumbled from her hand. It rolled directly into the path of the lead attacker. He looked down, annoyed, and kicked it aside with unnecessary force. Keep your kid's junk out of the way. The comment was casual cruelty, the kind of dismissive rudeness that powerful people showed toward those they considered beneath notice. But it was also a critical mistake. Lily's face crumpled, not just because her toy had been mistreated, but because a bad man had been mean to her daddy. She'd seen enough adults dismiss Noah to recognize the pattern. It always made her sad and angry simultaneously. That man was mean to you, Daddy. Her whisper carried loud enough for nearby customers to hear. The observation shifted something in the crowd's dynamic. Several shoppers who'd been avoiding the situation suddenly focused on Noah and Lily. A single father with his young daughter now being threatened by the same criminals terrorizing the CEO. This wasn't just about Vivian Cross anymore. It was about whether decent people would stand by while criminals hurt a family. Noah was already moving beyond emotion into tactical assessment. He'd identified his resources. A display of soda bottles near the dairy cooler metal shelves with adjustable brackets, paper towels that could be used for makeshift restraints. Most importantly, he'd mapped the lighting angles and camera positions that would document everything. The lead attacker was getting impatient with Vivian's resistance. Move faster, lady, or this gets messy for everyone around here. The threat was clear. Hurt the CEO, terrorize the witnesses, escape in the chaos. Classic intimidation escalation when the initial plan hit resistance. Noah positioned himself between his daughter and the developing crisis. He touched the red cord bracelet one final time, feeling the rough texture of yarn that Lily had braided with such care. A reminder of what mattered most, what he was willing to protect, what kind of man he chose to be when violence came to ordinary places. The attackers had made their choice. They'd brought weapons into a space filled with families. They'd threatened an innocent woman. They'd been cruel to his daughter. Now they were about to learn that some fathers were more dangerous than they appeared. You just picked the wrong father and daughter to threaten. Noah's voice cut clearly through the noise and panic. Every conversation in the supermarket stopped. Every shopper turned to stare. Security cameras recorded everything. And Vivian Cross, who had once dismissed Noah as unworthy of basic respect, found herself looking into the eyes of the only person willing to risk everything to save her life. Everything happened in the space between heartbeats. The lead attacker turned toward Noah, irritation flashing across his face. Back off, Dad. This doesn't concern you. Actually, it does. Noah's voice remained perfectly calm as he moved his shopping cart into position. When you threaten people in front of my daughter, it becomes my concern. Mercer tightened his grip on Vivian. Walk away, or your kid sees something she shouldn't. Wrong thing to say. Noah's training kicked in with cold precision. 3 years of night security work hadn't dulled the reflexes he developed during his time training conflict resolution for Port Authority. Non-lethal restraint, crowd control, pressure points designed to stop violence without permanent damage. But Noah wasn't at his peak anymore. 2 years of grief had taken their toll. Sleepless nights and skipped meals had hollowed him out in ways that weren't immediately visible. He was still strong, still capable, but not the professional he had once been. The odds weren't in his favor. Two trained attackers against one out-of-practice security expert. Yet something else had replaced his professional edge. Something fiercer, more primal. The absolute certainty that he would do whatever necessary to protect his daughter and prevent violence in a place where families shopped. The recognition flashed in Mercer's eyes. Then the sudden realization of who Noah was. The moment of recognition created a fractional hesitation. Noah seized the opportunity without conscious thought. The first move was simple but effective. Noah grabbed a bottle of soda from the nearby display and shook it hard while unscrewing the cap. The pressurized liquid erupted like a geyser, hitting the first attacker directly in the face. Carbonated soda and artificial coloring created instant disorientation. Stinging eyes blocked vision, the shock of unexpected assault. While the man clawed at his eyes, Noah moved to the primary threat. The utility knife pressed against Vivian's side was exactly what Noah had expected. A retractable blade designed for intimidation. When Mercer reflexively pulled back to avoid the soda spray, Noah struck the knife hand with the edge of his shopping cart. The impact wasn't hard enough to break bones, but it hit the exact nerve cluster that controlled grip strength. The utility knife clattered to the floor, its cheap blade retracting into the handle on impact. "Get down." Noah's command carried the authority of someone trained to manage crisis situations. Vivian dropped immediately, years of corporate survival instincts, recognizing real leadership when she heard it. Now Noah had clear access to both attackers. The first man was still blinded by soda, stumbling toward the paper towel display. Noah grabbed a handful of the rough brown towels and wrapped them quickly around the man's wrist. Not permanent restraints, but effective enough to control him for the 60 seconds this would take. Mercer, now disarmed but still dangerous, lunged forward with his fist. Noah sidestepped and used the man's momentum against him. A simple redirect learned from years of dealing with drunk and aggressive people during his security shifts. But this time something went wrong. Noah's foot slipped in the spilled soda, throwing off his balance, just enough that Mercer's punch connected with his ribs instead of passing harmlessly past. Sharp pain flared along Noah's side, a reminder that he wasn't the professional he once was, that 2 years of grief had eroded more than just his emotional defenses. Mercer pressed his advantage, following with a second punch aimed at Noah's face. Noah barely managed to deflect it, the force still sending him stumbling back against the wine display. Several bottles crashed to the floor, creating a hazardous landscape of glass and liquid. For a heartbeat, doubt flashed through Noah's mind. He wasn't ready for this. He was out of practice, operating on instinct rather than current training. He might fail, might get hurt, might let Lily see her father beaten. The thought of Lily centered him again. He touched the red bracelet, felt its rough texture against his skin. Breathe, breathe, and think. Noah's strength had never been in overpowering opponents. It had been in observation, in reading situations, and people, in finding unexpected solutions. He scanned his environment with renewed intensity. An older man stood at the edge of the crowd, military posture, alert eyes assessing the situation with professional interest. Their gazes met briefly, unspoken communication passing between them. The man nodded almost imperceptibly and began quietly directing other customers back, creating space, reducing potential collateral damage. Noah recognized another resource. Someone with training, one who understood what was happening. Not direct help, but containment preparation. Mercer advanced again, more cautious, now recognizing Noah as a genuine threat rather than an inconvenience. "You should have stayed with your kid, Cole. This isn't your fight. You brought the fight to my daughter when you kicked her bare." Noah's reply was steady despite the pain in his side. "And when you threatened an innocent woman in a public space." Innocent, Mercer scoffed. "You know what her company does? How many lives they destroy with their outsourcing and cost-cutting? People like her don't care about people like us. And this fixes that." How exactly? The conversation created critical delay. Seconds for Noah to regain his balance, to calculate his next move, to let the adrenaline override the pain in his ribs. The first attacker was recovering, now wiping soda from his eyes with his free hand. The paper towel restraint still limited his mobility, but wouldn't completely disable him much longer. Noah needed to end this quickly before the situation escalated beyond his control. He feinted left, then dropped low, sweeping Mercer's legs from under him. The move sent fresh pain shooting through Noah's side, but achieved its purpose. Mercer fell hard, the back of his head striking the edge of a lower shelf. Not enough to cause serious injury, but sufficient to disorient him momentarily. The first attacker had managed to tear away the paper towel restraint and was reaching inside his jacket, potentially for another weapon. Noah had no time for finesse now. He grabbed the mop bucket from the nearby customer service desk and upended it directly in the man's path. Soapy water industrial floor cleaner and the hard plastic rim of the bucket created a perfect storm of disorientation and injury. The man went down hard, slipping on the spreading puddle of cleaning solution. Noah was on him immediately, using another handful of paper towels to secure the man's hands behind his back. Again, not permanent restraints, but enough to keep him controlled until proper help arrived. Mercer was struggling to rise, still dazed from the impact. Noah turned to face him, calculating the risk of approaching versus maintaining distance. The decision was made for him when the older man from the crowd stepped forward, placing a firm boot on Mercer's chest. "Stay down, son." The man's voice carried unmistakable military authority. "You've made enough bad choices today." Mercer looked up, assessed the newcomer, and wisely decided to remain still. Total elapsed time, 43 seconds. Two attackers neutralized using nothing but supermarket supplies and techniques designed to stop violence rather than escalate it. The store had gone completely silent. Every customer, every employee, every security camera was focused on the single father who had just dismantled a kidnapping attempt using soda bottles and paper towels. Lily peeked around the shopping cart, her eyes wide. "Daddy, did you win?" Noah felt the adrenaline beginning to fade, the pain in his ribs making itself known with greater intensity. He managed a smile for his daughter. "We all won, sweetheart. The bad men can't hurt anyone now." Security guards finally arrived, followed immediately by police sirens wailing in the parking lot. Noah knelt beside Vivian, who was still crouched behind the wine display, shaking. "Are you hurt?" His question was gentle. She shook her head, unable to speak. Her perfectly styled hair was disheveled, her expensive dress stained with soda and wine, but she was unharmed. "Sir," one of the police officers approached Noah. "We're going to need a statement about what happened here." Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, scrolling through the photos he'd taken earlier. "I documented their suspicious behavior starting about 10 minutes ago. Coordinated movement targeting behavior weapons assessment. I have timestamps and clear images of both suspects." The officer stared. "You were gathering evidence before the attack even started security training." "Old habits." Noah handed over his phone. "You'll also want to check the store cameras. I positioned myself to make sure everything was captured clearly." A murmur rippled through the crowd of onlookers. This wasn't just a lucky intervention by a concerned citizen. This was professional-level threat assessment in response. Vivian slowly stood, using the wine rack for support. She looked at Noah with an expression somewhere between gratitude and disbelief. "I know you." Her voice came out quieter than probably intended. "You worked at Cross Tech. IT support contract work 6 months ago." Noah confirmed, wincing slightly as he straightened one arm wrapped protectively around his ribs. The recognition was dawning on her face, along with something that might have been shame. "I remember, I wasn't very kind to you." Noah shrugged, immediately regretting the movement as pain flared along his side. "You were having a bad day. Everyone has bad days." But the crowd around them was recording everything. Several people had clearly recognized both Noah and Vivian. The story was already being uploaded to social media, spreading across networks with the viral velocity that only genuine drama could achieve. The CEO who dismissed the IT contractor, saved by that same man when her life was in danger. The narrative practically wrote itself. Why Vivian asked after the police had taken preliminary statements and paramedics were checking both Noah and the subdued attackers. "After how I treated you, why would you help me?" Noah looked over at Lily, who was carefully coloring on her shopping list, adding decorative stars around the words, "Small Bear," with her blue crayon. Because that's what you do when someone needs help. And because I want my daughter to grow up in a world where people protect each other even when it's inconvenient or dangerous. The police finished securing the two attackers, both of whom were conscious but thoroughly subdued. The older man who had helped Noah approached, introducing himself as Frank Donovan, retired Marine Corps. Good work, son. Frank extended his hand. Haven't seen civilian intervention like that since I left the service. You've had training. Some. Not as current as I should be. Current enough. Frank nodded toward the attackers being led away. You handled that better than most would have, especially protecting the civilians and minimizing damage. The paramedic finishing her examination of Noah's ribs noticed the exchange. Your daughter's right, she said quietly. What you did was incredibly brave. She indicated Noah's torso. Are you going to need x-rays, sir? Just bruised, I think. I've had worse. At least let us wrap them for you. As the paramedics applied a supportive bandage around Noah's midsection, Vivian approached again. She'd been giving her statement to the police and the shock was beginning to wear off, replaced by something more complex. The officers say I owe you my life. They think these men were planning to use me to access proprietary technology at Cross Technologies. She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with vulnerability. I'm not good at this sort of thing, but thank you. Noah nodded, accepting her thanks without making it more difficult for her. How did you know what to look for, I mean? Most people wouldn't have noticed anything wrong until it was too late. I used to train security personnel in threat assessment and intervention techniques before I switched to IT work. Why would anyone make that career change? The question wasn't asked unkindly, just with genuine curiosity. Noah looked over at Lily, now happily examining her recovered teddy bear for damage. My wife died 2 years ago, car accident. Lily needed stability more than we needed the extra income from my security work. IT contracts let me be home when she gets out of school. My night security shifts are only when my in-laws can watch her. Understanding dawned on Vivian's face. You gave up your career for your daughter. I changed careers for my daughter. It's not the same thing. Before Vivian could respond, a flurry of activity at the store entrance announced the arrival of more police, along with what appeared to be corporate security personnel in suits. Ms. Cross, one of the suited men, approached urgently. Are you all right? The board has been notified of the incident. They're extremely concerned. I'm fine, Thomas. Thanks to Mr. Cole here. Vivian gestured toward Noah. He intervened when no one else would. Thomas gave Noah a cursory glance, the kind of assessment that categorized and dismissed someone in the same moment. Yes. Well, we'll make sure he receives an appropriate thank you. Right now, we need to get you somewhere secure. The media is already gathering outside. The supermarket manager approached, looking both concerned and calculating, clearly aware that her store was about to receive unprecedented publicity. Mr. Cole, is there anything we can do for you and your daughter? Perhaps complimentary groceries for your trouble? Noah shook his head. We just need to finish our shopping list. Milk, bread, and one small bear. Of course, the manager's enthusiasm was palpable. Please allow me to personally assist you. As the manager led Noah and Lily toward the dairy section, Vivian called after them. Mr. Cole. Noah, I'm sure we'll speak again soon. Cross Technologies owes you a considerable debt. Noah nodded politely but said nothing. He had no expectation of further interaction with Vivian Cross or her company. The gulf between their worlds was too wide, the encounter merely a momentary intersection of two very different lives. By tomorrow, she would be back in her executive suite, and he would be troubleshooting printer connections in office cubicles. Some distances couldn't be bridged by a single act of courage, no matter how dramatic. Frank Donovan fell into step beside Noah as they walked. Got a minute, son? Looks like I'm being escorted on a VIP shopping trip. Noah replied with a wry smile, gesturing to the hovering manager. You handled yourself well back there, but you're favoring your left side. Ribs. Noah nodded. Nothing serious. Still might put you out of commission for a few days. You mentioned night security work. 3 evenings a week. Why? Frank handed Noah a business card. I run a security consulting firm. Nothing fancy. Mostly training for corporate clients. Some risk assessment. Always looking for people who can actually handle themselves in real situations, not just talk about theory. Noah took the card, surprised. I appreciate it, but my schedule's pretty tight with Lily. Family comes first, Frank agreed. That's why all my contractors set their own hours. Think about it. The world needs more men like you teaching others how to handle themselves. With that, the older man nodded respectfully and walked away, leaving Noah holding the business card and feeling as though the ground had shifted beneath his feet. "Daddy, can we get ice cream too?" Lily asked, oblivious to the significant exchange that had just occurred. "Since you were a superhero today," Noah tucked the card into his pocket and smiled at his daughter. "I think that can be arranged, sweetheart." By the time they finished their shopping, the media presence outside the store had grown considerably. Noah guided Lily toward the side exit, hoping to avoid the cameras. The last thing he wanted was his daughter's face splashed across the evening news. But as they loaded their groceries into their modest sedan, a reporter spotted them. "Sir, are you the man who stopped the attack on Vivian Cross?" Noah placed himself between the approaching reporter and Lily. "No comment, please. My daughter's had enough excitement for one day. The video's already going viral. People are calling you the grocery store hero. Can you just tell us what made you step in when everyone else backed away? Please, we just want to go home." Recognizing Noah's protective stance, the reporter backed off slightly. "Of course, but people will want to know your story. Would you consider an interview later on your terms?" "Maybe, not today." As Noah drove home, Lily fell asleep in her car seat, clutching her new teddy bear. The events of the day had exhausted her, the excitement giving way to the deep, unburdened sleep that only children seem capable of achieving. Noah's ribs throbbed with each breath, a painful reminder of how close he'd come to failure. He wasn't as young as he used to be, wasn't as fast or as strong. If Frank hadn't stepped in to help contain the situation, if the attackers had been armed with real weapons instead of utility knives, if they'd been more prepared for resistance, the outcome could have been very different. Yet despite the pain and the what-ifs circling in his mind, Noah felt something he hadn't experienced in the 2 years since Sarah's death. A sense of purpose beyond mere survival. For years, his entire focus had been on creating stability for Lily, on building a life that was predictable and secure. Today had reminded him that sometimes security came not from avoiding danger, but from facing it directly when necessary. As he pulled into the driveway of their small house, Noah noticed the message light blinking on his phone. 3 missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize, and 1 text message from his former supervisor at Cross Technologies. "Saw the news. Board members asking about you. Call me." Noah silenced the phone and carefully lifted his sleeping daughter from the car. Some things were more important than viral videos or corporate inquiries. Right now, all that mattered was getting Lily into bed and finding enough painkillers to dull the throbbing in his side. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. For tonight, they were safe. They had each other. And they had successfully completed their shopping list. Milk bread's small bear and the unwritten item that mattered most coming home together. Part 1N. Word count 7847 words. Wait, I need to expand this significantly. Let me continue and reach the 18,000, 20,000 word target. The house felt different when they entered. Noah couldn't articulate exactly how, but some subtle shift in the familiar space made him pause in the doorway, Lily's sleeping form cradled against his chest. Perhaps it was simply his own altered state, adrenaline still cycling through his system, making everything sharper and stranger than it should be. Their home was modest, a 2-bedroom rental in a neighborhood that real estate agents optimistically called transitional. The kind of place where chain-link fences separated small yards, where cars parked on lawns, where the sound of sirens became white noise after a few months. Not dangerous exactly, but not the tree-lined street with good schools that Noah and Sarah had planned for back when planning futures seemed reasonable. They'd sold the family home after Sarah's death. Too many memories, too much space, too expensive to maintain on a single income. This rental was practical, affordable, close enough to Lily's school that she could walk if necessary. Noah had painted her bedroom himself, letting her choose the colors. She'd selected purple and yellow, a combination that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did, bright and cheerful and utterly Lily. He carried her to that room now, carefully maneuvering through the darkened hallway without turning on lights. She stirred slightly as he laid her on the bed, her small hand reaching for the teddy bear he'd tucked under her arm. "Did we really get the bear, Daddy?" Her voice was thick with sleep, uncertain whether the day's events had been real or dreamed. "We really got it, sweetheart. And milk and bread. We got everything on your list." She smiled without opening her eyes, already drifting back into deeper sleep. Noah removed her shoes, covered her with the quilt Sarah's mother had made, the one with squares of fabric from Sarah's old scrubs and Lily's baby clothes. He stood there for a moment watching his daughter sleep, feeling the complicated mixture of love and terror that parenthood seemed to demand. In the kitchen, Noah finally allowed himself to acknowledge the pain. His ribs screamed when he reached for the bottle of ibuprofen in the cabinet above the sink. The paramedics had been right about potential x-rays, but Noah couldn't afford the emergency room copay right now. Bruised ribs healed on their own anyway. Time and rest, neither of which he had in abundance. His phone buzzed incessantly on the counter where he dropped it. Noah ignored it while downing 3 ibuprofen with tap water. Only after the medication was swallowed did he finally look at the screen. 47 missed calls, 116 text messages. His email inbox showed over 300 new messages, most from addresses he didn't recognize. His rarely used social media accounts had exploded with notifications, friend requests from strangers, messages from people claiming to be journalists or documentary filmmakers or inspiration seekers. Noah scrolled through a few at random, trying to make sense of the sudden attention. "You're amazing. God bless you for saving that woman. This is what real heroism looks like, not these fake Hollywood versions. Can you do an interview for my podcast? We have 2 million subscribers. I'd like to option your life rights for a film project." The absurdity of it struck him. 24 hours ago, Noah had been invisible, unremarkable, someone whose name most people forgot within minutes of hearing it. Now strangers wanted to buy rights to his life story. One message caught his attention, different from the effusive praise or interview requests. It was from a local news producer sent an hour ago. "Mr. Cole, I hope you and your daughter are safe. I want you to know that we're being very careful with how we report this story. We have footage of the incident, but we're deliberately not showing your daughter's face or identifying information. However, other outlets may not be as considerate. You might want to consider doing one controlled interview to get ahead of the narrative. That way you can set boundaries on your own terms. If you're interested, I'd be happy to discuss. No pressure. Just wanted you to know you have options. Diane Chen, National Morning." The message was refreshingly straightforward compared to the others. No dramatic claims about heroism, no attempts at manipulation. Just a practical suggestion from someone who seemed to understand that Noah might want some control over how his story was told. Noah saved the message to consider later. Right now he needed sleep, needed to let his body begin the process of healing. But sleep wouldn't come. He lay in his own bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the confrontation in his mind. All the points where it could have gone wrong if Mercer had been carrying a real weapon instead of a utility knife. If the first attacker had been faster to recover. If another customer had panicked and created chaos that the criminals could have exploited. If Lily had been standing closer when the violence erupted. That last thought made Noah's breath catch familiar tightness spreading across his chest. He recognized the warning signs, the precursors to a full panic attack. His hand found the red bracelet, automatically fingers tracing the braided yarn. Breathe, count to 4 on the inhale hold, for 4, exhale, for 4. The breathing exercise Sarah's therapist had taught him after her death. Lily had later simplified it into something a child could understand. "Feel my breathing, Daddy, slow like mine." The panic receded gradually, leaving Noah exhausted but functional. He checked his phone again, saw that it was past midnight. 4 hours since they'd left Megamart. 4 hours since his life had fundamentally changed, though he didn't yet fully understand how or to what extent. A new text message appeared as he watched. His mother-in-law, Barbara. "We saw the news. Are you and Lily okay? Call us when you wake up. We're so proud of you, Noah. Sarah would be proud too." The mention of Sarah brought unexpected tears. Noah let them come, too tired to fight the grief that was never far from the surface. Would Sarah be proud? Or would she be angry that he'd put himself at risk, that he'd potentially endangered their daughter by intervening instead of just calling for help? He'd never know. That was the cruel finality of death, the permanent closure of all possibility for new conversations, new understanding, new forgiveness. Sarah existed now only in memory, in the ways Lily's expressions sometimes echoed her mother's, in the red bracelet that kept Noah tethered to the present. Sleep finally came sometime after 2 a.m. restless and populated with dreams, where he was too slow, where the knife found Vivian's ribs, where Lily was crying and he couldn't reach her. Morning arrived with harsh sunlight through inadequate curtains and the sound of Lily moving around in her room. Noah forced himself upright, every muscle protesting his ribs, a symphony of pain that made breathing an effort. "Daddy, you're famous." Lily appeared in his doorway, still in her pajamas, but clearly awake for some time. "Mrs. Peterson next door told me when I went to get the newspaper. She said you're on T and the internet and everywhere." Noah managed a smile despite the pain. "Is that so?" She said you're a hero. "Are you a hero now, Daddy?" The question was asked with such earnest curiosity that Noah had to consider his answer carefully. Lily was 8 years old enough to understand nuance, but young enough to still believe in clear moral categories. "I think hero is a word people use when someone does something brave. But I was just doing what seemed right in that moment. Because the bad men were hurting the CEO lady. Yes, and because I have training that helped me know what to do. Not everyone would have that training, so it was my responsibility to help if I could." Lily nodded seriously, processing this logic. "Is that why you used to teach security? So other people would know what to do too?" "Exactly." She climbed onto the bed, careful to avoid his injured side. "Do you miss it teaching, I mean? You always seemed happy when you talked about your old job." The observation surprised Noah. He hadn't realized Lily paid such close attention to his emotional state when he discussed his work history. "Sometimes I miss it, but I'm happy now too because I get to be with you more. But you could do both, right, if you had the right job." The wisdom of 8-year-olds cutting straight through complex adult rationalization to the simple truth underneath. Yes, he supposed he could do both if circumstances aligned correctly. "Maybe someday, sweetheart. Right now, let's focus on breakfast." "What sounds good?" Pancakes. Lily's enthusiasm was undimmed by the previous day's drama. She bounced off the bed and headed toward the kitchen, leaving Noah to lever himself upright with considerably less energy. His phone showed 63 new messages, accumulated overnight while he'd slept. Noah forced himself to ignore them while he mixed pancake batter, focusing instead on the mundane comfort of routine. Lily set the table, arranged her stuffed animals in attendance, and chattered about her plans for the day with the resilient adaptability of childhood. The doorbell rang halfway through breakfast. Noah wasn't expecting anyone. His in-laws typically called before visiting. His few friends knew to text first. Whoever was at the door at 8:30 on a Wednesday morning probably represented the kind of attention he'd been hoping to avoid. "Stay here and finish your pancakes, sweetheart." Noah moved carefully to the front door, his body reminding him with every step that yesterday's confrontation had taken a toll. The peephole revealed a woman in her 40s, professionally dressed, holding what appeared to be a tablet and business card. Not a reporter. The body language was wrong. This was someone accustomed to corporate environments, someone who treated morning house calls as normal business practice. Noah opened the door cautiously, keeping his body positioned to block any view into the house where Lily might be visible. "Mr. Cole, Noah Cole." The woman's tone was brisk, but not unfriendly. "Yes, how can I help you?" She extended her hand. "Rebecca Winters, Chief of Security for Cross Technologies. May I have a moment of your time?" Noah didn't take her hand, immediately assessing the situation. "It's Wednesday morning, Ms. Winters. I'm making breakfast for my daughter. I understand, and I apologize for the intrusion." She lowered her hand without offense. "However, the matter is time-sensitive and directly related to yesterday's incident. 10 minutes. That's all I ask." Noah considered his options. Turning her away would only delay whatever Cross Technologies wanted to discuss. Better to handle it now than have it hanging over his head. 10 minutes. I have pancakes on the stove." Rebecca followed him into the kitchen, where Lily was carefully arranging blueberries and a smiley face on her remaining pancake. The security chief's professional demeanor softened slightly at the sight. "You must be Lily. I've heard you're an excellent shopping list manager." Lily looked to her father for guidance on how to respond to this stranger. At his reassuring nod, she replied, "I write very neatly with blue crayon." The observation was delivered with complete seriousness. Rebecca suppressed a smile. "I'm sure you do. Blue is an excellent choice for important documents." Noah returned to the stove, flipping pancakes while keeping one ear on the conversation. "What can Cross Technologies want with me on a Wednesday morning?" Miss Winters. Rebecca placed her tablet on the counter, careful to keep it away from potential pancake splatter. "First, I want to personally thank you for what you did yesterday. Vivian Cross isn't just our CEO. She's the driving force behind technology that will revolutionize medical diagnostics. Her kidnapping would have been catastrophic on multiple levels. Noah acknowledged the thanks with a nod as he slid perfect golden pancakes onto Lily's waiting plate. The investigation revealed the corporate espionage angle. Yes, Jason Mercer and his partner were hired by competitors to extract proprietary information from Ms. Cross. It was quite sophisticated operation, actually. They'd been planning it for weeks. She paused, watching as Noah carefully cut Lily's pancakes into manageable pieces. Which makes your intervention all the more remarkable. You spotted them despite their professional training and planning. Like I told the police old habits from my security background. Noah poured more batter onto the griddle. But I doubt you came here just to thank me. Rebecca's expression turned more serious. No, I came with a proposition. Cross Technologies board held an emergency meeting last night after reviewing both the security footage and our internal protocols. They were deeply disturbed by what they found. Meaning that 6 months ago, when you did IT work for us, you submitted a comprehensive security assessment that identified significant vulnerabilities in our executive protection protocols. An assessment that Ms. Cross rejected as unnecessarily expensive and paranoid. Noah remembered the report well. He'd spent unpaid hours compiling it, going beyond his contracted responsibilities, because the security issues had genuinely concerned him. Vivian had dismissed it without serious consideration. Yesterday proved every point in your rejected assessment. Rebecca continued. Our executive protection failed completely, leaving our CEO vulnerable to exactly the kind of targeted attack you warned about. Lily, having finished her pancakes, was now drawing on a placemat with crayons she'd retrieved from her art supplies. She seemed absorbed in her work, but was clearly listening to every word. I appreciate the acknowledgement, but I'm still not seeing why this required a Wednesday morning house call. Rebecca straightened, shifting into what Noah recognized as a prepared pitch. The board has authorized me to offer you a position as special security consultant to Cross Technologies, focusing specifically on executive protection and corporate security protocols. Noah paused with his fork midway to his mouth. I'm an IT contractor, Ms. Winters. You're a former Port Authority security trainer with expertise in threat assessment and nonviolent intervention, who happens to also have IT skills. Rebecca's response was immediate. Your dual background is precisely what makes you valuable to us. She slid the tablet toward him, displaying a contract with terms that made Noah's eyebrows rise involuntarily. The salary was nearly triple his current combined income from IT work and night security shifts. This is generous, he admitted carefully, but also impossible. I'm a single parent. My entire work schedule is built around being available for Lily. Rebecca nodded as if she'd anticipated this objection. The position includes flexible hours, the ability to work remotely 3 days a week, and complete autonomy in setting your on-site schedule. We're not asking you to change your priorities, Mr. Cole. We're offering to align our needs with them. Lily, who had been quietly drawing, suddenly spoke up without looking away from her artwork. Does this mean Daddy won't have to work at night anymore because Grandma says he works too much and gets tired? The innocent question hit Noah with unexpected force. His night security shifts represented time away from Lily evenings, when he came home, exhausted mornings when he struggled to be fully present. He'd accepted it as necessary sacrifice, the cost of providing stability after Sarah's death. That would be entirely up to your father, Rebecca told Lily gently. But yes, this job would mean no more night shifts. She turned back to Noah. The board also authorized me to inform you that Cross Technologies will be covering all educational expenses for Lily through college, regardless of whether you accept the position. It's a separate matter, not contingent on your decision. Noah set down his fork, momentarily speechless. Lily's education fund had been depleted after Sarah's medical expenses and funeral costs. Rebuilding it had been a constant worry, a nagging anxiety about failing to provide for his daughter's future. Why go to these lengths? Rebecca's professional veneer cracked slightly, showing genuine emotion underneath. Because everyone saw that video, Mr. Cole. Everyone saw a man who had been treated poorly by our company put himself at risk to save our CEO. The contrast between your actions and how Cross Technologies handled your previous contributions is not a narrative any corporation wants associated with their brand. Ah, there it was. The real motivation underneath the generous offer. This wasn't purely about recognizing talent or correcting mistakes. This was about managing public perception, controlling a narrative that had already started spreading across social media. So this is about public relations. Noah's tone stayed neutral, but his disappointment was evident. Partially, Rebecca admitted. I won't insult your intelligence by pretending otherwise, but it's also genuinely about recognizing talent and correcting a legitimate mistake. Your security assessment was correct. Your intervention yesterday was extraordinary. Cross Technologies needs people like you regardless of what the internet thinks. She stood gathering her tablet. You don't need to decide now. The offer remains open for 2 weeks. She placed a business card on the table next to Noah's half-eaten pancakes. Call me when you're ready to discuss it further. After Rebecca left, Noah sat at the kitchen table staring at the business card while Lily finished her drawing. The offer was more than tempting. It would solve immediate practical problems, provide security for Lily's future, eliminate the exhausting night shifts that left him depleted. Yet something felt wrong about it. As if accepting would somehow validate the system that had dismissed him in the first place would confirm that his worth was only visible after a dramatic public display. Daddy, look. Lily pushed her drawing across the table. It showed 3 stick figures, a tall one labeled Daddy, a small one with pigtails labeled Me, and a figure in a red triangle dress labeled CEO Lady. All 3 were holding hands with enormous smiles drawn in bright crayon. That's beautiful, sweetheart. Why are they all holding hands? Lily looked at him as if the answer should be obvious. Because you helped her, so now she's our friend. That's how it works. The simple, optimistic logic of childhood where saving someone automatically made them your friend, where past slights could be forgotten instantly. Noah wished the adult world operated with such straightforward rules of engagement. His phone buzzed again, this time with a text from his mother-in-law, Barbara. Turn on Channel 7 now. Noah reached for the remote with a sense of dread, switching on the small television in the kitchen. The screen filled with an aerial view of their house, a news helicopter circling overhead like a vulture. Breaking news this morning as we continue coverage of the dramatic rescue at Megamart yesterday. We're live outside the home of Noah Cole, the heroic father who saved tech CEO Vivian Cross from armed kidnappers using only household items found in the supermarket. Daddy, our house is on TV. Lily's excitement was mixed with confusion, her 8-year-old mind trying to process why this was happening. The camera cut to a reporter standing at the end of their driveway where a small crowd of journalists and curious onlookers had already gathered. Sources tell us that Cole, a former security specialist who now works in IT support, had previously warned Cross Technologies about security vulnerabilities that left their CEO exposed to exactly this kind of attack. His warnings were reportedly ignored by the company that later hired him as a contractor. Noah switched off the television, his mind racing. This was escalating beyond anything he'd expected. Their home address being broadcast reporters camped outside the implied corporate negligence angle, all of it creating a narrative he'd never asked for or wanted. Are those people going to come to our door? Lily's excitement had shifted to anxiety. No, sweetheart, we're not going to talk to them. Noah pulled out his phone and dialed his in-laws. Barbara answered on the first ring. You've seen the news, just did. I was hoping we could come over for the day. Maybe stay the night. The reporters are outside, of course. Pack whatever you need. We'll have lunch ready when you get here. As Noah helped Lily gather essentials for an overnight stay, his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize, but felt compelled to answer. Cole, this is Frank Donovan, the Marine from yesterday. Frank's voice was gruff with concern. You've seen what is happening at your house. Just did. We're heading to my in-laws until things calm down. Good. These media frenzies burn hot but fast. Listen, I've got some experience managing this kind of attention. Military taught me a few things about deflecting unwanted spotlights. Want some advice? Noah paused in the middle of packing Lily's favorite pajamas. I'd appreciate it. Don't run from it. Control the narrative instead. Give them one interview on your terms at a neutral location. Answer their questions, be humble but confident, then firmly state that's all you're saying on the matter. They'll respect boundaries if you establish them clearly. And if they don't, Frank's chuckle held little humor. Then you call me, and I'll show them what a cranky old Marine thinks about harassing a single father and his little girl. The offer of support from someone he barely knew caught Noah off guard. Since Sarah's death, he'd grown accustomed to handling everything alone, reluctant to lean on others beyond practical childcare help from his in-laws. I appreciate that, really. One more thing. Whatever Cross Technologies offered you, and I'm sure they've approached you already, don't take the first offer. You've got leverage right now. Use it. After ending the call, Noah finished packing. They left through the back door, cutting through the neighbor's yard with permission, avoiding the growing media presence. Noah had parked his car 2 blocks away as a precautionary measure, a habit from his security training days. Is this like being a spa daddy? Lily whispered dramatically as they moved through Mrs. Peterson's garden. Something like that, sweetheart. We're just avoiding the cameras for a while. At his in-laws' house across town, Noah finally had a moment to process everything. Barbara and Gerald welcomed them with open arms, immediately whisking Lily off to see the new bird feeder Gerald had built, giving Noah space to think. The kitchen table had been the site of many family discussions over the years. Now Noah sat alone there, Frank's business card in one hand, Rebecca Winter's card in the other, weighing options he'd never imagined having 24 hours ago. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mr. Cole, this is Vivian Cross. I need to speak with you personally, not through corporate representatives. Please call me at this number when you can. The message surprised him with its directness, the CEO herself reaching out rather than delegating communication. Noah saved the number without responding immediately. He needed time to think, to consider his options carefully rather than react to the cascade of attention. Gerald entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. Sarah's father had aged significantly since her death grief, etching deep lines around his eyes, but his practical nature remained unchanged. Thought you might need this. He slid one mug across the table. Lily's showing Barbara her bear and explaining how you rescued it from very bad men at the store. Quite the storyteller. Our girl. Noah accepted the coffee gratefully. It's getting complicated, Gerald. Life has a way of doing that. The older man settled into the chair opposite. Barbara's already fielded 6 calls from reporters who somehow got our number. You're big news, son. Not by choice, rarely is. Gerald studied him thoughtfully. You know, when Sarah died, you withdrew from everything except Lily and work. Understandable. Grief takes different paths for different people. But I always wondered if you were using your responsibilities as a shield against rejoining the world. The observation struck uncomfortably close to home. Noah had indeed retreated after Sarah's death, narrowing his focus to essential tasks. It had been safer that way, more controllable. Maybe, but this isn't exactly the re-entry I would have chosen. Life rarely asks our permission before changing course. Gerald's response was gentle but pointed. Question is, what are you going to do with the opportunity? Opportunity. Noah repeated the word as if testing its weight. Having reporters camped on my lawn and corporate executives suddenly discovering I exist. The opportunity to step back into the larger world. To use the skills you set aside after Sarah died. To show Lily that her father isn't just a protector, but someone who builds and creates beyond just safety. The perspective shift was unexpected. Noah had been viewing the attention as an intrusion, a problem to manage and then escape. Gerald was suggesting it might be something else entirely. Before Noah could formulate a response, his phone rang. His night security supervisor, Dave. Cole saw you on the news. Impressive work. Dave's voice held genuine admiration. Listen, hate to add to what I'm sure is a crazy day, but I need to know if you're going to make your shifts next week. Got calls from 3 networks wanting to set up interviews at the business park during your patrol. Can't have that kind of disruption. Noah closed his eyes briefly. Of course the media would track down his workplace. Of course they'd try to film him doing his security rounds. The night shift that had been stable and reliable was now compromised. I understand. Let me think about it and get back to you tonight. Sure thing. And Cole, whatever you decide, you've got a job here as long as you want it. Not everyone would have done what you did. The conversation left Noah feeling both grateful and increasingly cornered. His carefully constructed life was unraveling. Gerald, who'd been listening, pushed a notepad across the table. Make a list, all the options, all the concerns, all the possibilities. Your mother-in-law swears by it. The suggestion was so practical, so characteristic of Gerald's approach to problem solving, that Noah found himself smiling despite everything. Sarah had inherited that same methodical nature. She would have had a spreadsheet created already with color-coded categories. Sarah would know exactly what to do. Maybe. Gerald's expression softened, or maybe she'd be just as overwhelmed. What I do know is that she'd want you and Lily to thrive, not just survive. She'd want you to use every talent you have, not just the ones that fit neatly into a safe routine. As Noah began writing down his options, Lily burst into the kitchen with Barbara, following apologetically. Daddy, Grandma let me watch TV, and you're on it again. They're showing the video where you made the bad men fall down with soda. Noah set down his pen, accepting Lily onto his lap, despite the protest from his bruised ribs. Are they? What did you think about it? It looks scary. But you weren't scared at all. Noah exchanged a glance with Gerald, who raised an eyebrow in silent challenge. How much truth did children need? Actually, I was scared. Being brave doesn't mean not feeling scared. It means doing what's right even when you are scared. Lily considered this, her small brow furrowed. Like when I got my shot at the doctor's office and I was scared, but I did it anyway. Exactly like that. Were you scared when Mommy died? The question came without warning, cutting straight to the heart of matters adults carefully circled. Noah felt both Gerald and Barbara watching, waiting to see how he would navigate this moment. I was terrified, more scared than I've ever been in my life. Scared about taking care of you alone, scared about how much it hurt to lose Mommy, scared about what our life would look like without her. But you did it anyway. Lily was making the connection herself. You were brave like at the store. I tried to be. Sometimes I wasn't very good at it. Sometimes I'm still not. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck. It's okay, Daddy. We can practice being brave together. Over Lily's shoulder, Noah saw Barbara wiping away tears while Gerald nodded with quiet approval. The simple wisdom of children, courage, was a skill to be practiced, not an inborn trait. That sounds like an excellent plan, sweetheart. The rest of the day passed in comforting routine. Lunch in the backyard, Lily helping Gerald with his garden. Barbara showing Noah the scrapbook of news clippings she'd already begun collecting. The normalcy was both soothing and slightly surreal, given the media circus likely still camped outside their home. By evening, Noah had made some decisions. He called Dave and resigned from his night security position, explaining that circumstances made it impossible to continue. Dave understood, even offering to keep the position open for a few months. Next, Noah called Frank Donovan, accepting his offer of guidance through the media attention. Smart move. I'll set up one interview, controlled environment, limited time. They get their story. You set your boundaries, everyone moves on. After putting Lily to bed in his old room, Noah finally steeled himself to return Vivian Cross's call. It was nearly 9 p.m., possibly too late, but his intuition suggested this wasn't strictly business. She answered on the second ring. Mr. Cole, thank you for calling back. Ms. Cross, you wanted to speak with me? There was a brief pause. Yes, not as CEO to contractor, but as the woman you helped to the person who helped her. I'd like to meet somewhere private, away from corporate representatives and media. Noah hadn't expected this personal approach. May I ask why another pause? Because what happened yesterday wasn't just a security incident to me. It was deeply personal, and your intervention was equally personal. I need to understand why you did it, especially given our previous interaction. The vulnerability in her voice was surprising. All right, but I'm staying with family right now, avoiding media attention, and my daughter is my priority. Of course. Would tomorrow evening work? I can come to you wherever is convenient. No assistance, no corporate security, just me. They arranged to meet at a small coffee shop near his in-laws' house, unlikely to attract attention. After ending the call, Noah sat on the back porch watching stars and trying to make sense of how completely his life had changed in 36 hours. The coffee shop was deliberately ordinary, a local place called Bean Counter that catered to neighborhood regulars rather than business professionals. Mismatched furniture, local artwork on walls that hadn't been repainted in years, the kind of establishment where baristas knew customers by name and drink preference. Noah arrived 10 minutes early, selecting a corner table with clear sight lines to the entrance. Old habits. He ordered 2 coffees, remembering Vivian's preference from his time at Crosstech, dark roast, no sugar, splash of cream. She'd announced this preference loudly to her assistant multiple times daily, as if caffeine requirements were corporate directives. She arrived exactly on time, dressed so differently from her usual CEO armor that Noah almost didn't recognize her. Dark jeans, gray sweater, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Without the designer suits and intimidating heels, she looked younger, more approachable, and noticeably uncomfortable in her own skin. Thank you for meeting me. Vivian slid into the chair across from him, hands wrapping around the coffee cup he'd ordered. Her fingers trembled slightly before she steadied them, especially given everything. The words hung between them, weighted with unspoken implications. Everything encompassed so much their previous antagonistic interaction. The kidnapping attempt, the viral video, the media scrutiny now dissecting both their lives. You remembered how I take my coffee. The observation seemed to surprise her more than it should have. Most people she worked with probably didn't bother learning such details or forgot them immediately if they did. Part of the job. Noticing details. Noah's response was deliberately neutral, establishing professional distance. I've rehearsed this conversation a dozen times since yesterday. Corporate training teaches you to prepare for every interaction to control the narrative. A hint of self-deprecating humor crept into her voice. But I keep coming back to the same question, why did you help me? The directness deserved equal directness in response. Because you needed help. After how I treated you at Crosstech, after dismissing your security recommendations, the same ones that might have prevented the entire incident, Noah considered his answer, carefully aware that this conversation would shape whatever professional relationship they might develop. What happened at Megamart wasn't about our previous interaction. It wasn't about balancing scales or proving a point. It was about doing what was right in that specific moment. She studied him with intensity that suggested she was searching for hidden motives, alternative explanations that would fit more neatly into her understanding of human behavior. Most people act out of self-interest, even unconsciously. They calculate advantage. I'm not claiming to be selfless, but in that moment, the calculation was simple. I had skills to help you needed help, and my daughter was watching me make a choice about what kind of man I am. Something shifted in Vivian's expression, recognition flickering across her features. Your daughter. Lily, right? How is she handling all this attention? The questions seemed genuine rather than perfunctory. She's resilient. Children often are. But she has questions I'm not always sure how to answer. Like what? Like why the bad men wanted to hurt you. Like why people on TV are saying mean things about your company. Like whether you're going to be our friend now because I helped you. Noah smiled slightly at the last one, remembering Lily's drawing. Vivian's composure cracked momentarily, genuine surprise showing through. She asked if we'd be friends. In her world, that's how it works. You help someone, they become your friend. Simple. Nothing simple about it from where I sit. Vivian took a long sip of coffee, gathering thoughts. The board is in damage control mode. The leaked security assessment has created perception that I prioritize cost-cutting over safety, that my management style created unnecessary vulnerabilities. And did it? The question was asked without judgment, purely seeking truth. Yes, among other things. The admission clearly cost her running counter to years of corporate training about never admitting fault or weakness. Noah recognized the effort it represented. My security chief says you've been offered a consulting position. Rebecca explained that I personally authorized the terms, including the educational fund for Lily. She mentioned it was separate from the job offer. It is. Regardless of whether you work with Crosstech, that fund is established. It's not a bribe or inducement. It's, she hesitated, searching for words. Acknowledgement of what? Of the fact that I was wrong. About your security assessment, about dismissing your concerns, about treating you like you were beneath notice when you were trying to prevent exactly what happened yesterday. The admission hung between them, simple but profound. Noah had expected corporate spin-careful phrasing that acknowledged without accepting responsibility. This straightforward acceptance of error was unexpected. The thing is, that wasn't an isolated incident. Vivian continued after a moment. The board has been collecting examples of my executive abrasiveness for months. The way I spoke to you was apparently typical of how I treat support staff and contractors. The security incident just brought it all to a head. Noah listened, sensing deeper currents beneath this confession. The board has given me an ultimatum. Demonstrate meaningful change in my leadership approach or step down as CEO by the end of the quarter. The revelation explained the personal approach, the vulnerability, the 9 p.m. phone call. Vivian Cross wasn't just facing public embarrassment or corporate damage control. She was fighting for her professional survival. That seems harsh. Actually, it's fair. Vivian's laugh held little humor. I built Crosstech from nothing, took risks no one else would, drove innovation that transformed medical diagnostics. But somewhere along the way, I started believing that results justified methods, that treating people as tools rather than colleagues was acceptable if it delivered outcomes. She ran a finger around the rim of her coffee cup, rare gesture of uncertainty. The irony is that I came from nothing, grew up in subsidized housing with a single mother working 3 jobs. I know what it's like to be invisible, to have people look through you rather than at you. Yet somehow I became exactly the kind of person I used to resent. The personal revelations surprised Noah. Nothing in Vivian's public profile suggested this background. She'd always been presented as brilliant wonderkin whose rise was inevitable. Why are you telling me this? Because I need your help again. Not with physical safety this time, but with something more fundamental. I need someone who will tell me the truth, who sees people clearly, who understands both corporate security and human dignity. And you think that's me based on one incident and a rejected security assessment, based on the fact that you helped someone who had treated you poorly without expectation of reward or recognition, based on how you speak about your daughter and what you want her to learn from you, based on the way you handled that crisis with minimal force and maximum awareness of everyone's safety. She leaned forward slightly. People reveal their true character in how they respond to pressure. You showed yours at Megamart. I showed mine by ignoring your warnings and treating you like you were disposable. Noah considered her words, remembering Gerald's suggestion that this situation might be opportunity rather than disruption. What exactly are you asking me to do? Take the security consultant position, but with expanded scope. Yes. Review and implement proper executive protection protocols, but also help me understand where my blind spots are, where my leadership style creates vulnerabilities rather than strengths. Be the person who tells me the truth when everyone else is too intimidated to speak up. It was a remarkable request from someone known for brooking no criticism. Either the board's ultimatum had truly shaken her, or Vivian Cross was more calculating than her reputation suggested. As if reading his skepticism, Vivian added, "I'm not asking for a friend, Noah. I'm asking for an honest mirror. Crosstech develops technology that saves lives. That mission matters to me. If protecting it means confronting my own flaws as a leader, then that's what I need to do. And I need someone who isn't afraid of me to help." The sincerity in her voice was compelling. Noah had spent his professional life reading people, assessing threats, recognizing deception. Everything in Vivian's manner suggested genuine concern rather than manipulation. "I'll consider it, but I need to be clear about my priorities. Lily comes first and always. My schedule has to accommodate her needs, not just cross-techs." "Absolutely. The terms Rebecca outlined stand flexible hours, remote work options, complete autonomy in setting your on-site schedule. And if it doesn't work out, if we discover that your leadership style and my approach to communication are fundamentally incompatible, then we part ways professionally with no impact on Lily's educational fund and a generous severance package." Vivian's acceptance was immediate. "I'm not asking for a lifetime commitment, Noah. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can change, that Crosstech can be better than it was when you experienced it." Their conversation continued, delving into specifics of the position and expectations. Noah found himself reassessing Vivian Cross. The arrogant executive from his previous encounter was still there in her precise language and strategic thinking. But something else emerged too, glimpses of the determined woman who had risen from poverty to create a company genuinely changing lives through medical technology. By the time they parted, Noah had not given a final answer, but had agreed to visit Crosstech the following week for detailed discussions. "Thank you, Noah, for the conversation, for considering the position, and for what you did at Megamart. I haven't said it properly yet. You saved my life. I won't forget that." As Noah watched her leave, he reflected on complexity. What had begun as simple grocery trip had cascaded into viral video media attention job offers, and now this unusual proposal from the very CEO whose dismissive treatment had been part of the viral narrative. Life rarely moved in straight lines, but this particular curve had been unexpected by anyone's standards. The interview with Jason Mercer happened 3 weeks later, arranged through Crosstech's legal team after considerable negotiation with law enforcement. Noah drove to the county detention center on a gray Tuesday morning, Frank Donovan accompanying him at Noah's request. "You don't have to do this. Frank's observation came as they passed through the second security checkpoint. The guy tried to kidnap your boss. Most people would be content letting him rot. I need to understand how someone goes from security professional to corporate espionage. If it happened to him, it could happen to others. That's a vulnerability I need to address. The visitation room was depressingly institutional, concrete walls, painted institutional beige metal table, bolted to the floor chairs that had seen decades of difficult conversations. Mercer was brought in wearing orange jumpsuit and restraints, looking thinner and older than Noah remembered from their training sessions 3 years ago. Recognition flashed in Mercer's eyes when he saw Noah. "Cole, didn't expect you to visit." Noah gestured for the guard to remove the restraints from Mercer's hands, a courtesy that earned a raised eyebrow from Frank, but no objection from the prisoner. "I'm here because I trained you, because you were good at what you did. I need to understand what happened." Mercer rubbed his wrist where the restraints had been buying time to formulate his response. "You want the whole story or just the highlights? Start with when things went wrong. Budget cuts eliminated my position 18 months ago." Mercer's voice was flat, reciting facts without emotion. "Port Authority downsizing, last hired, first fired. I had 6 months severance, seemed like enough time to find something comparable, but it wasn't. Security jobs were scarce. The positions that existed paid 30% less than what I'd been making. My wife was pregnant with our second kid. My son needed surgery for a heart condition, specialized pediatric cardiology, that insurance only partially covered. The financial pressure built steadily. Savings depleted, credit cards, maxed mortgage 3 months behind. Mercer had sent out hundreds of applications, networked desperately, even considered leaving the security field entirely. That's when they approached me, at a job fair of all places. Very professional, very sympathetic. Said they represented a corporate intelligence firm, completely legitimate, helping companies protect their interests in competitive markets. The recruitment had been sophisticated. They knew everything about Mercer's situation, his son's medical needs, his mortgage status, his wife's pregnancy complications requiring expensive monitoring. They offered enough money to solve all his immediate problems, framed the work as corporate security consulting. By the time I realized what they actually wanted, I was already compromised. They had recordings of our initial conversations, documents I'd signed, thinking I was agreeing to consultation terms. Backing out would have meant legal exposure and losing the money I'd already spent on my son's surgery. "So you targeted Vivian Cross." It wasn't random. They'd been studying Cross Technologies for months, identified Vivian as the weak point in their security. "Your assessment was actually right about everything, Cole. I read it when they showed me their research." They had somehow obtained a copy. Noah's mind clicked through implications. Someone inside Crosstech had leaked his security report to competitors. That was a separate problem to address. The Megamart approach was supposed to be simple extraction. Scare her into compliance, get the access codes we needed, release her unharmed. We specifically chose a public location because we thought you wouldn't risk civilians by resisting. You thought wrong, obviously. Mercer's expression held something that might have been respect or resentment. Possibly both. You were always good at reading situations, adapting tactics. That's what made you a good trainer. I should have remembered that before accepting this job. "What happens now?" Noah asked, though he already knew the answer. "My lawyer says federal charges, probably 5 to 7 years if I cooperate fully. My wife divorced me last week, taking the kids to her sister's in Ohio. My son's medical care is covered by victim assistance programs, which is something at least. The devastation was complete, career destroyed, family shattered, freedom forfeited. All because financial desperation had been expertly exploited by people who specialize in turning good men into assets. I'll recommend that Crosstech not pursue additional civil charges," Noah said after a long pause. "And I'll work with victim advocacy groups to ensure your son's care continues regardless of your incarceration." "Why would you do that?" "Because I believe in addressing root causes, not just punishing symptoms. And because my daughter taught me that people deserve chances to learn from mistakes." After leaving the detention center, Frank was quiet until they reached his car. That was generous. More than he deserved. Maybe. But if we only help people who deserve it by some arbitrary standard, we miss opportunities to prevent future problems. Mercer became vulnerable because the system abandoned him. How many other security professionals are in similar situations right now? One crisis away from being recruited by the wrong people. Frank nodded slowly. You're thinking bigger than just executive protection. I'm thinking about building a system that protects everyone, not just the people at the top. The first board meeting Noah attended happened 5 weeks after the Megamart incident. Vivian had spent those weeks implementing visible changes, employee satisfaction surveys, open door office hours, revised performance review processes that emphasized team collaboration over individual achievement. Noah had been conducting comprehensive security audits documenting not just physical vulnerabilities, but also systemic issues that left employees exposed to exploitation. His report included recommendations for financial counseling services, mental health support, and early intervention programs for personnel experiencing personal crises. The boardroom fell silent when Noah entered. 14 people sat around a massive table, Vivian at one end and Chairman Douglas at the other. All eyes turned to assess him. Mr. Cole, thank you for joining us, Douglas began formally. The board has been reviewing Ms. Cross's leadership changes over the past quarter following the incident at Megamart. As someone who has worked closely with her during this period and who experienced her previous management style firsthand, your perspective would be valuable. Noah took the indicated seat, aware that his words could significantly impact Vivian's future. What would you like to know specifically? Has Vivian Cross genuinely changed as a leader? One board member asked bluntly. Or is this simply damage control following a public relations disaster? When I first joined CrossTech as a security consultant, 3 months ago, I was skeptical, Noah admitted. Ms. Cross had previously dismissed my security recommendations and treated me as essentially invisible. I had little reason to believe any change would be substantial or lasting. He paused, aware of Vivian's carefully controlled breathing across the table. I was wrong. The changes I've witnessed aren't superficial adjustments to appease the board or manage public perception. They represent a fundamental shift in leadership approach. Ms. Cross now actively solicits input from all levels of the organization, balances security concerns with innovation needs, and has created a corporate culture where people feel valued rather than merely utilized. Can you provide specific examples? Noah outlined several instances: the vulnerability support program for employees, her balanced approach to the technology announcement security, her willingness to share credit with research teams. Most significantly, she's created an environment where people can speak truth to power without fear of retaliation. That's the foundation of both good security and good leadership. The questioning continued for nearly 30 minutes. Throughout, Noah provided honest, balanced assessments, acknowledging areas still needing improvement while emphasizing substantial progress achieved. Finally, Chairman Douglas thanked him, suggesting he could return to his regular duties while the board deliberated. 3 hours later, a company-wide email announced the decision. Vivian Cross would remain as CEO with certain structural changes to ensure positive leadership evolution continued. Noah's security consultancy would be extended into a permanent executive position, Chief Security Officer, reporting directly to the board as well as to Vivian. The news spread quickly through the organization. By 5 o'clock, as Noah prepared to leave for the day to pick up Lily, his office door opened to reveal Vivian. Do you have a minute? Her professional demeanor was now relaxed tension of the day's events finally dissipating. Of course. Congratulations on the board's decision. Thank you, both for that and for your testimony today. You could have been much more critical. The board would have understood given our history. I told the truth. The changes you've made are real and significant. The board made the right decision. They're offering you a permanent executive position, Chief Security Officer. Vivian's statement was both question and confirmation. I saw the email. It's a generous offer, but I need to think about it. Genuine surprise crossed her face. You're considering declining? It's not about the terms. It's about what's right for both CrossTech and for me long-term. I need to be sure this is where I can contribute most effectively. Understanding dawned in Vivian's expression. You're concerned about becoming too integrated into the corporate hierarchy, losing your independence and objectivity. Partly, the value I bring is partly because I'm not fully embedded in corporate culture or politics. Making me an executive risks changing that dynamic. What if we structured it differently? Vivian's response came quickly. Keep the consulting arrangement, but with guaranteed tenure and board-level reporting. You maintain independence while still having the authority and resources to implement necessary changes. That could work. I'll need to review the specifics, but the approach makes sense. Good. Relief was evident in Vivian's voice. I'll have legal draft the revised proposal tomorrow. She hesitated. There's something else I wanted to discuss, something more personal. The company's annual charity gala is next month. It benefits pediatric cancer research. I was wondering if you and Lily might attend as my personal guests. The invitation caught Noah completely off guard. The Cross Charity Gala was a major social event attracting celebrities, politicians, and business leaders. Not the kind of function where consultants typically appeared, much less their 8-year-old daughters. It's not a professional obligation. I thought Lily might enjoy seeing the science demonstrations we set up for the children's area, and I'd like the opportunity to meet her properly. Not just as the CEO lady from her drawing. The request seemed genuinely personal rather than professionally motivated. Noah considered implications for Lily: an exciting evening exposure to cutting-edge technology, chance to meet the woman whose life her father had saved, but also potential media attention and exposure to a world far removed from their modest life. Let me think about it and discuss it with Lily. It should be her choice too. Of course, the invitation remains open. As Vivian left, Noah sat quietly reflecting on the extraordinary journey of the past 3 months. From invisible IT contractor to prospective chief security officer. From the man who couldn't afford a small teddy bear without careful budgeting to someone being invited to elite charity galas. From a life carefully constructed around minimizing risk to one now opening to unexpected possibilities. Later that evening, after Lily was bathed and in her pajamas, Noah broached the subject. Sweetheart, I've been invited to a special party for my work, and they said you could come too if you wanted. It's very fancy with beautiful dresses and science experiments for kids to see. Lily's eyes widened. Like a princess party? Sort of. It's to raise money for sick children to help doctors find ways to make them better. Like Mommy did. Yes, exactly like Mommy did. Lily considered this seriously. Would I get to wear a pretty dress, the prettiest dress we can find? Would the CEO lady be there? The one you saved at the store? Yes, she's the one who invited us. She'd like to meet you properly. Lily's expression turned solemn. Is she really being nicer now? Like in my drawing, she is. She's worked very hard to change how she treats people. Your drawing helped remind her what's important. This seemed to satisfy Lily. Then I want to go. I want to meet her and see if she's learned to be nice. Like I said, the simple evaluation criteria made Noah smile. Has she learned to be nice? If only all complex situations could be assessed through such clear lens. Then we'll go. And you can be the judge of how well she's learned her lesson. The dress shop specialized in formal wear for children, a niche market catering to families who attended weddings, recitals, and apparently charity galas. Lily stood before a 3-way mirror, turning slowly in a blue dress that caught light like water. What do you think, Daddy? Her reflection multiplied into infinity, each version equally uncertain about whether this was the right choice. I think it's perfect. But what matters is how you feel in it. She smoothed the fabric across her stomach, a gesture Noah recognized from Sarah. His wife had done the same thing when trying on clothes, an unconscious check for comfort and fit. It feels like something Mommy would have liked. The observation carried no sadness, just simple statement of fact. Lily's relationship with her mother's memory had evolved into something healthy over the past 2 years, painful absence gradually transforming into cherished presence. Then it's definitely the right one. The saleswoman, who'd been hovering at a respectful distance, approached with shoes and a small handbag that matched the dress. Lily accepted them with solemn gratitude, already practicing the formal manners she'd need for the event. On the drive home, Lily was uncharacteristically quiet. Noah glanced at her in the rearview mirror, noting the slight furrow between her eyebrows that indicated serious thinking. Something on your mind, sweetheart? Are rich people different than us? The question was asked without guile, pure curiosity about social dynamics she was beginning to perceive. They have more money, which gives them different opportunities and sometimes different problems. But fundamentally, people are people, regardless of their bank accounts. Will they be nice to us at the party? Noah considered how to answer honestly without creating anxiety. Most of them will be polite. Some might be genuinely kind. A few might be dismissive or rude. But none of that reflects on you or me. It only reflects on them. Like how the CEO lady used to be rude, but now she's learning to be nice. Exactly like that. Lily nodded, satisfied with this framework. I'll watch carefully and decide if she's really changed or just pretending. The gala was scheduled for Saturday evening. Noah spent the intervening days finalizing his revised employment contract with Crosstech's legal team, working with Frank Donovan on expanded security training programs, and trying to manage the persistent, low-level media attention that still occasionally flared around his story. The grocery store hero narrative had largely moved on to other viral moments, but Noah remained recognizable enough that strangers sometimes approached him in public. Most were kind, expressing admiration or gratitude. A few wanted selfies or autographs requests that baffled Noah. He'd done what needed doing in a specific moment. The ongoing fascination felt disproportionate. Frank offered perspective over coffee 2 days before the gala. People need heroes, Cole, especially ordinary ones who use household items instead of superpowers. You represent something they want to believe about themselves. That they'd intervene in a crisis, that they could. That courage isn't some rare genetic gift, but a choice available to anyone with sufficient motivation. Frank stirred sugar into his coffee with deliberate movements. The Marine Corps taught me that heroism is usually just someone doing their job under difficult circumstances. You were doing what your training and character prepared you for. The fact that most people aren't prepared doesn't make you extraordinary. It makes the lack of preparation unfortunate. The observation resonated. Noah had never considered himself heroic, just competent in a narrow set of skills that happened to be relevant in a specific situation. Speaking of preparation, you ready for tomorrow night? Frank's question carried layers of meaning beyond surface inquiry about formal wear. As ready as I'll be. Lily's excited, which helps. And you? How are you feeling about all this? Noah paused, really considering the question. 3 months ago, my biggest concern was making sure we had enough money for groceries and keeping my night shift from exhausting me too much to be present for Lily. Now I'm negotiating executive contracts and attending charity galas. It feels surreal. Change often does. The question is whether it feels right. Does it increasingly? Yes, which scares me almost as much as the change itself. Frank nodded, understanding. After my son died, I spent 2 years convinced that moving forward with my life was betraying his memory. Took my wife threatening divorce to make me realize that honoring him meant living fully, not existing in suspended grief. The parallel to Noah's own experience was clear. Sarah wouldn't want you frozen in the life you built immediately after her death. She'd want you and Lily thriving, I know. Gerald said something similar. It's one thing to know intellectually, another to feel it emotionally. That's why you bring Lily to the gala. Let her experience new things, meet new people, see her father operating in spaces beyond the narrow boundaries you drew after Sarah died. Kids are resilient. They adapt to expanded possibilities much faster than adults. Saturday arrived with crisp autumn weather temperature, perfect for formal wear. Noah dressed carefully in the suit he'd purchased for the interview Frank had arranged, adding the tie Lily had helped select because it had tiny blue threads that matched her dress. She emerged from her room at 5 o'clock, transformed. The blue dress fit perfectly, her hair styled in complicated braids that Barbara had spent an hour creating that afternoon. She wore small pearl earrings that had been Sarah's a gift from Noah that morning that had made Lily cry happy tears. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Do I look grown up? You look exactly the right amount of grown up for an 8-year-old attending her first gala. Frank and Margaret arrived promptly at 5:30 to provide transportation. Margaret, whom Noah had met only twice before, took one look at Lily and pressed a hand to her heart. Oh, my dear, you're absolutely stunning. That dress is perfection. Lily beamed under the praise, then climbed carefully into the car's back seat, mindful of keeping her dress unwrinkled. The museum hosting the gala had been transformed. Lights wrapped around columns, floral arrangements filled every available surface, and a string quartet played near the entrance. Luxury vehicles lined up for valet service, disgorging passengers in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. Noah felt Lily's hand tighten in his as they approached the entrance. He squeezed back reassuringly. Remember, sweetheart, we belong here just as much as anyone else. We were invited. We're welcome. Even if some people don't think so, especially then. Vivian materialized near the entrance, elegant, in a black gown that managed to be both formal and approachable. Her face lit up genuinely when she saw them. Noah Lily, I'm so glad you made it. She knelt to Lily's eye level, the gesture now familiar from their first meeting. That dress is absolutely beautiful. Blue is definitely your color. Thank you. Daddy helped me pick it out. And these were Mommy's earrings. Lily touched the pearls with careful fingers. She can't be here, but I wanted to bring something of hers. Vivian's expression softened with understanding. That's very special. I'm sure she would be proud of how beautiful and brave you are. Are you really being nicer to people now? Lily's directness made several nearby guests pause their conversations. Vivian didn't flinch. I'm trying very hard. Your daddy has been helping me learn how to be a better leader and a kinder person. What do you think? Am I doing better? I'll let you know at the end of the night. I'm going to watch very carefully. The response drew quiet laughter from those close enough to overhear. Vivian smiled, seemingly unbothered by having her transformation subjected to 8-year-old evaluation. That seems fair. I look forward to your assessment. She stood, turning to Noah. The children's science area is through those doors. Lily, there's a demonstration showing how doctors can see inside the heart without surgery. I thought you might find it interesting given what your daddy told me about your mother's work. Lily's eyes widened. Can we go see it, Daddy? Of course. The children's area occupied several gallery spaces transformed into interactive exhibits demonstrating Crosstech's medical innovations. Lily was immediately drawn to a display showing real-time cardiac imaging, where a technician explained how ultrasound waves created pictures of the heart's chambers and valves. My mommy was a doctor. She helped people's hearts. Lily's announcement was made with quiet pride. The technician, a young woman with kind eyes, smiled warmly. Then she'd probably love seeing how this technology helps doctors help hearts even better. Would you like to try controlling the imaging probe? For the next 30 minutes, Lily was completely absorbed, asking questions with scientific curiosity that surprised Noah. She wanted to know how the waves traveled, why they bounced back differently from different tissues, whether this could help babies who were born with heart problems, like her friend from school. Noah stood back slightly, watching his daughter engage with the world in ways he'd rarely allowed himself to encourage. He'd been so focused on stability and safety that he'd inadvertently limited her exposure to possibilities. Sarah would have taken Lily to science museums regularly, would have nurtured this curiosity without hesitation. She's very bright. Vivian had approached quietly, standing beside Noah to observe, asking questions that medical students ask in their second year. She gets that from her mother. Sarah was brilliant, always wanting to understand mechanisms rather than just outcomes. You must miss her terribly, every single day. But I'm learning that missing her doesn't require limiting Lily's experiences. If anything, it requires expanding them. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Lily carefully manipulate the imaging controls under the technician's guidance. Thank you for coming tonight. I know this isn't your usual environment. It's not. But Lily needed to see her father operating confidently in unfamiliar spaces. And I needed to prove to myself that I could. You're doing beautifully. Both of you are. The evening progressed with surprising ease. Lily met other children, forming quick friendships the way only children can. Noah found himself in conversations with research scientists, philanthropic donors, and corporate executives, discovering that his security expertise provided unexpected common ground across diverse fields. Frank appeared periodically, checking in with subtle nods, ensuring Noah felt supported without being intrusive. Margaret took Lily under her wing during dinner, entertaining her with stories about Frank's military adventures that were clearly embellished for audience. The formal program included speeches about Crosstech's innovations, testimonials from patients whose lives had been changed by their diagnostic technologies, and a video presentation showing the pediatric cancer research being funded by the evening's donations. When Vivian took the stage to deliver closing remarks, she departed from her prepared script. Before I conclude, I want to acknowledge someone who changed my life 3 months ago. Many of you know the story of what happened at Megamart. What you might not know is that Noah Cole had tried to help Crosstech months before that incident, offering security recommendations that I dismissed without proper consideration. The ballroom had gone completely silent. His willingness to help me, despite that previous dismissal, taught me something crucial about leadership, that treating people with dignity isn't a luxury or a courtesy. It's a fundamental requirement for any organization that claims to value human life. Noah's courage that day saved my life. His honesty since then has helped save our company's culture. She paused, making direct eye contact with Noah across the crowded room. I'm grateful to him, to his remarkable daughter Lily, and to everyone who supported Crosstech's evolution into an organization that tries to live up to the life-saving mission of our technology. The applause was substantial. Noah felt his face flush with discomfort at being singled out, but Lily squeezed his hand with evident pride. She's really learned, hasn't she, Daddy? To be nice and say thank you and notice people. Yes, sweetheart, I think she really has. As the formal program concluded and guests transitioned to dessert and dancing, Vivian approached their table. Lily, I was hoping you might give me your evaluation now. Have I passed your test? Lily considered the question with appropriate seriousness. You listened to people tonight without looking at your phone. You said thank you to the waiters and knew their names. You told everyone my daddy was important, and you were wrong before. And you asked me questions like, you really wanted to hear the answers, not just because you're supposed to be polite to kids. She paused, then delivered her verdict. I think you're really learning to be nice. You're not perfect yet, but you're practicing. Like Daddy says, that's what matters. Vivian's eyes glistened with unexpected emotion. Thank you, Lily. That means more than you probably realize. She looked at Noah. Your daughter is an excellent judge of character. She's had good teachers. As the evening wound down and guests began departing, Lily fell asleep against Noah's shoulder, exhausted from the excitement. He carried her carefully to where Frank had brought the car around. Successful evening. Frank's question was rhetorical. He could see the answer in Noah's relaxed posture, the easy smile that had been rare in the 2 years since Sarah's death. Very successful. Thank you for the push to accept the invitation. Sometimes we need pushing toward opportunities we're not quite ready to recognize ourselves. During the drive home, with Lily sleeping peacefully in the back seat and streetlights creating patterns through the windows, Noah felt something shift internally. The careful walls he'd built after Sarah's death, the rigid boundaries designed to create safety through limitation, those structures were dissolving. Not collapsing catastrophically, but gradually opening to allow new possibilities. He'd spent 2 years in survival mode, functioning rather than living. The grocery store incident had cracked that protective shell. Everything since the job offer, the developing professional relationship with Vivian, tonight's gala, had widened those cracks until light could penetrate. Sarah would approve, not just of his professional advancement or financial security for Lily, but of his willingness to engage with life's complexity again. To risk, to connect, to believe that good things might still be possible. Frank pulled up to their house, now blessedly free of media presence. Noah carefully transferred Lily from car to bed without fully waking her. She stirred only long enough to mumble something about heart waves and nice CEO ladies before sleep reclaimed her. In his own room, Noah removed the suit jacket and tie, then paused at the small photo on his nightstand. Sarah smiled from the frame, captured at a moment of pure joy during their trip to the beach 3 months before her death. I think we're going to be okay. He spoke quietly to the image, a habit he'd developed in the months after her death. Lily's thriving. I'm finding my way forward. We're building a life you'd recognize as ours, even though you're not here to share it. The red bracelet circled his wrist, familiar weight and texture. Lily had made it so he'd remember to breathe, so he'd stay calm during panic attacks. But it had become something more, a reminder that courage came in many forms, that love persisted beyond loss, that healing happened gradually through countless small moments of choosing to continue. Tomorrow he would sign the revised contract with Crosstech, officially becoming Chief Security Officer with maintained independence and board-level authority. He would continue working with Frank on expanded training programs. He would be present for Lily's school activities and homework and bedtime stories. He would live rather than merely survive. Monday morning brought Noah to Crosstech headquarters as an official executive rather than consultant. His office remained the same, but the title on his door had changed. Noah Cole, Chief Security Officer. Rebecca Winters stopped by before his first meeting. Welcome to the permanent team. Your first assignment came in over the weekend. She handed him a tablet displaying an incident report. One of our satellite facilities reported suspicious activity near their research lab. Local security handled it, but the board wants your assessment on whether it represents broader vulnerability. Noah scanned the details, mind already sorting information into patterns and implications. I'll visit the facility this afternoon. Can you arrange access? Already done. You'll have full cooperation. As Rebecca left, Vivian appeared in the doorway. Got a minute before your site visit? Always. She entered, closing the door behind her. A rare gesture suggesting this was personal rather than professional. I wanted to thank you again for bringing Lily on Saturday. Her evaluation meant more to me than any board approval or corporate metric. She's a reliable indicator of authentic change. Children lack the filters that let adults pretend. Exactly, which is why her verdict carries such weight. Vivian paused, seeming to gather thoughts. I also wanted you to know that the board approved your proposal for the Employee Vulnerability Program. Full funding, dedicated staff, everything you requested. We're implementing it across all divisions starting next quarter. The news was significant. NOAA's proposal had outlined comprehensive support systems for employees facing financial hardship, medical crises, or personal emergencies. The kind of support that might have prevented Jason Mercer's recruitment by corporate espionage operatives. That's excellent. I'll work with HR to develop screening protocols that identify people who need help without creating stigma. I trust your judgment completely on implementation details. Vivian's confidence was genuine. You've earned considerable autonomy. Use it well. After she left, Noah sat quietly for a moment, absorbing the reality of his transformed circumstances. 3 months ago, he'd been invisible, IT contractor, living paycheck to paycheck. Now he held executive authority to implement systemic changes affecting thousands of employees. The responsibility was substantial, but no longer overwhelming. He had skills, experience, and most importantly, the support structure to succeed. Frank's mentorship, Vivian's institutional backing, the board's authorization, all of it combining to create conditions where meaningful change became possible. His phone buzzed with a text from Barbara. Lily told us all about the gala. Said you were the most handsome daddy there, and the CEO lady is definitely learning to be nice. We're so proud of both of you. Noah smiled at the message, feeling warmth that had been absent for too long. Gerald's earlier observation returned to mind. Sarah would want you and Lily to thrive, not just survive. They were thriving now. Lily was flourishing in school, making friends, asking scientific questions about cardiac imaging. Noah was using all his talents rather than just those that fit safely within narrow boundaries. Together, they were building a life that honored Sarah's memory without being imprisoned by grief. The red bracelet remained on his wrist, but its meaning had evolved. No longer just a tool for managing panic attacks, it represented something larger, the connection between fear and courage, between loss and growth, between the person he'd been and the person he was becoming. When you get scared, remember to breathe. That was the original purpose. But now it meant more. When you're offered chances to grow, take them. When you encounter people who need help, offer it. When circumstances change unexpectedly, adapt with grace rather than resistance. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Cole, your car is ready for the facility visit. Thank you. I'll be right down. Noah gathered the incident report, his security assessment templates, and the quiet confidence that came from knowing his path forward. The grocery store confrontation had catalyzed everything, but the real transformation had happened gradually across countless small moments of choosing to engage rather than retreat. As he rode the elevator down to ground level, Noah reflected on how completely life could change in 3 months. From invisible to visible, from struggling to stable, from merely surviving to actually living. The doors opened onto the lobby where autumn sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. Noah walked toward the waiting car and the facility visit and all the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. Some fathers were more dangerous than they appeared, but all fathers, if they were fortunate, eventually learned that true strength lay not in confronting threats, but in building lives worth protecting. Lily was waiting when he got home that evening, homework spread across the kitchen table. She'd drawn another picture, this one showing the three of them at the gala, Daddy in his suit, herself in the blue dress, and the CEO lady with a smile and words in a speech bubble. Thank you. What do you think, Daddy? I think it's perfect, sweetheart. Just like you. Outside, the neighborhood continued its ordinary rhythms. Inside, a father and daughter built their extraordinary, ordinary life, one careful choice at a time, always moving forward together.